Hey, what's up, guys?
Well,
this is
welcome.
YeahBuoy. This is my first Fireside Chat. Fortitude, did you want to do the intro, or?
No, go ahead. No, you're fine.
Sorry, you're breaking up. It's starting kind of hard to understand what you're saying.
Go ahead.
I think you're saying go ahead, but it's kind of breaking up. Is anyone else hearing him clearly, or is that just me that's not?
Yes, go right ahead.
All right.
I also hear him breaking.
All right, so this is my first Fireside Chat, and the topic is going to be how to improve your win rate and victory rate. I have a whole bunch of notes that I've prepared, and I did not end up getting all of them organized in the perfect way that I wanted to. There's just so many paragraphs I have here on my screen that I didn't know exactly. I haven't worked out the correct order in which to present all this, but I am going to give you a lot of information, and hopefully later on I'll be able to organize it a little bit better and give you like a numbered list. But there's a bunch of things for win rate. So first off, my win rate is at 83%. Is at just over 83%. It's like 83.34 today. It wasn't always this high. When I first started playing, for those that don't know, I have to play with only my right hand because my left hand is partially paralyzed. I had started playing this game just after a stem cell transplant from when I was battling cancer, and I was very fatigued mentally and physically, and I actually used this game. This was actually the only game I could really play because I used to play first-person shooters or racing games and stuff, and I was having a hard time finding like action games that I could play with just one hand, and it just so happened that I could play this one with one hand. And so when I started playing this, the only thing that was going through my mind was, how can I get better? What can I do to become better? Because I'm already at this disadvantage with playing with just my right hand. And so what I started doing was, within the first, like, I think it was probably within the first maybe 300 battles, I decided to start recording my matches on my iPad so that I could study my gameplay and figure out, like, what am I doing wrong? How can I get better? Something that I noticed right off the get-go, just within like the first 50 battles, was you don't want to play solo. I was studying these matches and realizing if I just didn't have that one bad guy on the team, we may have won. And so I decided, like, I need to start adding better players, and the only thing I knew was to add the I mean, at that time I didn't have any friends, so I just added the players that were on my team or the enemy team. They were getting a lot of damage, and then once I added them, I would look at their stats and see if them getting a lot of damage was a normal thing, or if that was just a random good match that they had, and it didn't happen very often. So when I think in the first 300 battles that I started playing, my win rate was only, I think, 56%. And so if you want to keep in mind that now I'm at 83%, and my first 300 battles in January of last year was around 56%. Once I started teaming up with other players that were doing about as good as I am. Like, my first friend ever, his name was Clef Dad. He doesn't play anymore, but we had the exact same win rate and we were playing the same ships. And so we just played really well together. We both had like a 56% win rate. And then once we started playing together, we got up to, I think, 58% in just like a day. And then that's when I applied to join my first fleet. And it was Aegis, which at the time was one of the top fleets, and they were actually hesitant to take me on because they had a requirement of at least 68%, or sorry, 60% win rate. But since I was around 58%, they gave me a chance and invited me in. And the fleet commander, Storm, he put me in the starter fleet, which was still Aegis but spelled a little differently. And the fleet commander of that one was Brandon J1. He started teaching me some strategies and tactics, and essentially, if this is how I got started, this is the best thing I can recommend to everyone else if you're just getting started. Apply to a fleet that is going to teach you how to play better. Don't just apply to a fleet that only cares about like activity. If your goal is to improve your win rate, then be in a fleet where they're going to help you improve, because that's what I did. I wanted to join a skilled fleet that would help me improve. I wanted to play with like-minded players, and that's what ended up happening. So the first thing is, I have this list here. Number one, don't play solo. You want to play with like-minded players. If you have friends with a low win rate that don't really care about winning, they don't care if they lose, then they're not going to help you achieve your goals. If you both have the same goal of winning, then they are going to care about those strategies and how they can improve themselves. Also keep in mind, you might have many friends with the same goal, but not everyone's going to have the same amount of dedication to achieving those goals. So if you have friends, if your goals is, let me see, hold on, let me read real quick. If your friends have a goal of winning more, but they aren't investing time into learning how to play better, then they're kind of hoping for better stats without actually working for it. So if you're really dedicated to improving your win rate, like find your friends that are actually doing things actively to improve their skills and become better. Y'all can discuss map strategies before you go into the match, and the best thing to do would be to voice chat. You can get on Discord, which is a free app. That's what we're using right now to record this. Discord's a free app where you can voice chat with your voice, or you can just text chat. And even if you don't want to use Discord for like strategies like this, it's a great app just to share screenshots or read strategies of what other players are doing, or get a feel for which fleets are really active or which fleets are out there. Discord's just a really good way to find out what the community is doing, so you don't actually have to be involved. But if you do want to improve your win rate, Discord is a big part of that, because you can form those strategies with your what do you call them? Can someone jump in when 3 people, your squad, could someone jump
Division.
in and fill in the word I'm looking
Division.
for? Sorry, say that.
Platoon?
Yes, platoon. So you can tell your platoon with your voice like what you're gonna do, or if you need some backup, you can say that. You know, the in-game chat is really limited on chat options on what you can say, and like sometimes if you want to say like good job and you press the thumbs up, it says the wrong thing. So yeah, I recommend Discord for voice chat to improve your win rate. Number 3 is you want to play the best ships in each ship line according to the tier. You want to skip the bad ships. For example, if you're playing the well, I don't recommend playing cruisers if you specifically want to improve your win rate, because they're too vulnerable. There's not as many overpowered cruisers as there are destroyers or battleships or aircraft carriers. But if you were playing, for example, a cruiser, I love like the German cruiser line, but not all of the ships. For example, the Königsberg and the Nuremberg, I have a high win rate in. I do really well in those ships, but and those are tier 5 and 6. I don't do well in the tier 7 or 8 German cruisers. And so I would recommend skipping those. And in that same sense, there's other lines like the Japanese battleship line, where I've played a lot all the way up to tier 10. I was doing great at tier 5, 6, and then I was kind of doing average in tier 7, so I didn't want to keep playing tier 7 because I knew that was going to lower my win rate in the Japanese tier 7 battleship, the Nagato. So I skipped that and I went up to tier 8 to the Amagi, and then everything was good again. Then at tier 9, I was doing bad in the Uzumo, like really bad in the Uzumo for the tier 9 Japanese battleship. So I ended up skipping that and going up to tier 10, then I was doing great again in that. So if you only want to focus on your win rate or your average damage, your performance, then make sure that you're skipping the ships that you're not doing well in and only playing in the ones that you are doing well in. And there's a whole bunch of other things on this list. Map strategies. This is a huge one. You need to make sure that you're implementing the right strategies in each map. And so one of the big things that I want to create a video on is map strategies. For one, in just about every single match that I play, if I start on the right side of the map, I'm gonna start facing my main guns to the right side of the map, like facing the wall of the map, because I'm gonna be heading in between the whatever 2 zones I'm between when I spawn. If I'm spawning on the right side of the map and the right side is C, then I'm gonna be going toward the middle of B and C and facing my main guns towards C, because what you want to do is you want to be in the middle of the action like all the time. You don't ever want to be on the edges of the map, because once you, like if I spawn on the right side of the map and I'm on like the edge of the right side or in the middle of C or on the right side of C by the wall, well, once we take out all those enemies, I have that much further to sail to get to the other side of the map at A to help my teammates over there. Like, it's going to take a lot longer to travel over there and help out your teammates, and so you can't really be as effective if you're playing on the outside of the maps. To improve your win rate, you need to be able to carry your team whenever they need carrying. And so if you're just really far from the battle, or once you're done with your side, you have that much further to travel that you're not going to be as effective. So since I love to carry teams whenever they need to be carried because I love winning, that means I need to be able to kind of supervise the battle or go where I need to, or go where my team needs me the most at any time. And the best place to be for that is in between two zones. And of course, I don't recommend staying between two zones. You definitely want to cap the zones. But at the beginning of the match, when you're trying to figure out where all the enemies are, I love to face my gun towards the outside of the map and sail between whatever two zones are in front of me, so that if I need to go over to the right, I can, or go to the left, I can. One other strategy, I typed this out on my Mutsu ship, my first 2 battles. I didn't add voice to that video, but I typed out this strategy. When you look at a mini map at the beginning of a match, if you see on the mini map that you have 4 teammates on the right side of the map and you're on the left side with 3 teammates, you and your other 2 teammates, the side that has 3 needs to go regroup with the side that has 4. That's very important if you want to win, because when you go regroup with the other side that has 4, now there's 7 of y'all on one side dominating the other 3, and y'all are going to have a massive advantage over there. Whenever teams spawn, if there's 3 of you on one side, that means there's 4 enemy on the other side, on their spawn. And your side of the map that has 4 teammates that spawn on the right side, that other side is going to have 3 enemies. So whichever side of the map has 4 of your teammates, they already have an advantage because there's 1 more teammate of yours than there is enemy. So when you go regroup with those 4, if those 3 enemy go straight ahead, then they're already outnumbered. So then when y'all regroup, then it's 7 versus 3. So you have a massive advantage. 7 versus 3, you can take them out so quickly and then go cap B or cap the other zone, or you can cap B along the way. But either way, you want to take out enemies as quickly as possible if you want to win. And so that means carrying out the right strategies, regrouping with your teammates, and working together. You want to target the players that are the most vulnerable. And honestly, if you see a teammate that's making a bad move and they're going off solo and you know they're going to get sunk, I don't recommend following them, because you're probably going to get sunk as well. If you know they're going to get sunk, that means you know that you're about to be like one versus the other people, because once they're sunk, then it's just you. So sometimes when I see a player that at the beginning of the match, they're going to do a bad strategy, I don't even follow them. I let them go off and get themselves sunk, because I know that I'm better off carrying out a good strategy with my other teammates than following and supporting that other guy with a bad strategy. Was someone trying to say something a second ago? Okay, so I'll continue. So map awareness, pay attention to your teammates. The other thing is you want to improve your skills. If you want to win more, of course you have to be better. You need to optimize your DPS, optimize your survivability. You need to aim your rounds better, dodge torpedoes better, mitigate damage better. You need to become a harder target to hit. And you also need to know, you need to be versatile. Like, you need to be comfortable with being aggressive as aggressive gets, or as passive gets, depending on what each situation calls for. So essentially this means becoming a competent player. To be an effective, versatile player, you need to be able to make the right moves at the right time. So there is a time to be aggressive and there's a time not to be aggressive. And you need to know when that is and carry it out at the right time. The better you are at surviving or mitigating damage, the more mistakes you can get away with. So if you misjudge a situation and you're too aggressive, the better you are at mitigating damage, the more often you'll come out on top even though you made a bad move. So that happens to me a lot. Sometimes I'm too aggressive. I'm like, oh dang, like I made a really bad move right here. Like for example, there's one video where I was texting and I was in my Tikal, and I just sailed right into battle. And then when I looked up at the screen, there was a enemy destroyer right in my face, and I was like, oh great. So I threw my ship in reverse, and I just wanted to remain parallel with that destroyer's torpedo path, and then I ended up dodging all of them, and that became like a really awesome video for me. But that was a big mistake. Like you don't want to put yourself in that situation. That was what I was saying, where if you're good at mitigating damage, you can come out on top. The better you are at mitigating damage, the more leniency you have as far as like correcting your mistakes. Let's see here, let me go find my next notes. You want to record your matches so that you can see if you make a bad salvo. You need to be able to watch yourself play so you can see, okay, that was a bad salvo, that missed. Why did it miss? Study where you aimed and why those rounds missed and where you should aim next time. You need to be able to see bad situations or bad paths and recognize them, so that the next time you see it, your mind makes that connection, like, oh, I've seen this before, this was a bad move. Or when you're aiming at an enemy, you say, oh, I remember what this looks like. When I aimed like this the last time, I missed these rounds. So what do I need to do this time? If you know what a bad situation looks like, you can avoid it. A lot of times when I'm watching other players on YouTube play, I can see where they're aiming and I say, oh, those are gonna miss. Like, those rounds are gonna miss. And then they do, because I know what it needs to look like when you're aiming at an enemy, where you need to be aiming. I know what those mistakes looks like because I've watched my own mistakes and I've learned from them. So if you can record your matches and study your mistakes, you'll become much better. You can also, whenever you lose a match and you rewatch the replay, fast forward it or make it like, I guess on a, I don't know about the other tablets, but on my iPad, I can pause the video and then just kind of skim through with my finger, and it'll just fast forward the video as fast as my finger moves, so I can watch the mini map and see where all my teammates went and see, like, okay, we just lost, and then I'll just sit there and watch the mini map and fast forward it real fast and just see where all my teammates went and at which point they died and how many enemies there were. So you can study, you can like form your own map strategies or figure out which strategies don't work based on like watching where your team went or how y'all lost. Something else you want to do is you want to study videos from skilled players. Back when I used to play, hold on, let me take a breath real quick. When I used to play first-person shooters a long time ago, it's probably back in like 2011, I was very competitive. No, 2012, I was very competitive in Call of Duty Call of Duty Black Ops 2. I was a very competitive player back then, and I was playing on the PlayStation 3. What I used to do was watch the best players on YouTube and study what they do, study their tactics, where they're moving on the map, and then I would try and implement those same strategies and just so that I could see what it looks like to be good, and then copy that success strategy and then form my own. I did the same thing with Rocket League. When Rocket League first launched on the PC, I would watch. Now Rocket League was very hard for me to like get skilled at, but I eventually did, and the way I did it was by watching skilled play, because I never played soccer or anything, so I watched skilled players play Rocket League and see like where they went, when they went there, which angle they hit the ball, because that way my mind could make that connection between, okay, this is a skilled player, this is the decision they made in this situation. And so my mind ended up recognizing those situations whenever they happened in my matches. I would make the right decisions because I remembered what the other better players made in those same situations, and that made me much better. So you can make your mind like subconsciously make those connections so that you can make those right decisions in real time. If you want your win rate to be, say, 70%, don't learn strategies from players with win rates that aren't near your goals. So if there's some player, I am not thinking of anyone in particular because I don't know what the win rates are of all the different YouTubers. But if there was a YouTuber with like a 58 or 60% win rate, and they have like thousands of battles, so it's well established, and you want your win rate to be above 70%, I don't recommend learning like a ton of strategies from those 60% players, because what they're doing isn't achieving your goals. This idea comes from something I heard like a decade ago, or over a decade ago. If you want to lose weight in real life, you don't hire a fat personal trainer to help you lose weight. You have to hire the people that have already achieved your goals. So like when I was in high school, I wanted to have big muscles, so I didn't hire a skinny personal trainer. If I wanted big muscles, I went out and I hired the trainer that had the biggest muscles, but was legit muscle, not just like big arms because it was fat, but real like lean, huge muscles. That's the guy that I hired because he had already achieved the results that I wanted. So in that same sense, be very particular about who you're learning from. If you want to become a 70% player, learn from 70% players. Learn what they did. Now, if you're a new player, or if you're just not a new player, just not doing very well, if you're around, like, say, I'm gonna go down the different win rate percentages. If you're currently around a 50% win rate, my recommendation to you is to add players that are doing good in matches, and if they accept your friend request, then check their stats, see if they regularly perform well, and check their stats in certain ships, not just their win rate, because some players have high win rates that are way higher than what they should be, simply because they team up with better players so much. For example, in my fleet ascension, I look for applicants with at least like a 60% win rate and 1.0 enemy destroyed ratio, which means they're sinking on average one ship per battle. So every time they get sunk, at least they're sinking one more ship, so it kind of evens out. But I also check average damage to see how they're actually contributing to those wins and enemies destroyed. So if someone's applying with like a 60% win rate and they have a 1.0 enemy destroyed ratio, but they mainly play like, say, tier 5 matches, and they're averaging 15,000 damage in their tier 5 ships, I would deny their application because they're not actually as skilled as their stats reflect. So consider those type of things when you're evaluating who you're going to play with if you want to improve your win rate. Don't play with players that have like a 60% win rate or a 70% win rate, but then you look at their ship stats and they're actually not doing very much damage. Like, they're doing way below average damage for those tiers. That means they're being carried and they're not actually going to help you win. Instead, they would be relying on you to win. I highly recommend playing with like players that have at least the same win rate as you, because at least if you're over 50% and there's at least 2 of you, then naturally, like, you're gonna start winning more often. So like, if you remember when I said earlier that in my first 300 battles, I had like a 56% win rate, and I added this other player that also happened to have the same win rate as me, and we were playing the same ships. We started playing together, so once there was 2 of us, that we had the same average damage. It was literally like a duplicate of me. We had the same average damage, same win rate, played the same ships, had the same strategies. So it was like there was 2 of me in the battle, and at that time I wasn't like a super skilled player. I was very new. I made so many horrible mistakes back then, but at least since we were both over 50%, we started winning more often. If you're currently like a 60% win rate player and you want to get up to, say, 70%, then play with other players that have a 60% or higher win rate, if that's your only goal. And another thing is, if you and another player's play style doesn't complement each other, then don't play with them if you want to win. Because I've had plenty of skilled players on my friends list in the past that I stopped playing with simply because even though we both played well and were both skilled, our play styles didn't complement each other. So even though we had good win rates, we actually did worse together, because as counterintuitive as that sounds, it's true. 2 skilled players don't always mean you're gonna win more. I actually noticed that I was losing more with this other skilled player because, like, I haven't pinpointed what it was, other than that I noticed that even though we're both very skilled, we were losing a lot together. And so I noticed that our play styles weren't complementing each other. So when I was caring about winning all the time, I wouldn't play with them. Something else to consider is that not everyone's stats reflect their actual skill. There's a lot of players that just take a lot longer to get good, and then they're way better than their stats reflect. So there's been players in the past that there's actually been 70% players, win rate players, that I would rather play with some of my other friends. Like there's this one guy in particular that I'm thinking of. His win rate is 58% or somewhere around that. It may have improved since then. But this 58% player was way more skilled than this other guy on my friends list that had 70% win rate. And that's because he played a lot of solo battles, but it also took him a lot longer to learn and get better. But over time, he ended up becoming way better than this other player who had the 70% win rate. So don't only judge people by their stats. Study them in the battle, and if you notice they're making the right decisions, they're doing the right strategies, and they're actually contributing really well to the battle, then just ignore their stat page and just play with them, because you know that you're gonna win more with them. Let me see. I had mentioned earlier, stop playing cruisers if you want to improve your win rate. The only reason I say that is because if the only goal is to improve win rate, your best bet is being in the ships that can carry a team the most, which is going to be either a battleship or a destroyer or aircraft carrier. Out of all the different ships, well, the 4 different types of ships, I think that cruisers are harder to carry a team than the other 3 types. I think the easiest way to carry a team is to be in a battleship. Second easiest, which is very close, or even equivalent, would be an aircraft carrier, but actually not even equivalent. I definitely think battleships are the easiest to carry a team. After that would be aircraft carrier, and then destroyer, and then cruiser last. Cruisers are like, there's not as many overpowered cruisers, I think, as there are battleships. And the thing is that just cruisers are so vulnerable with destroyers. Even though they have less health and less armor, you can stay undetected and still do a lot of damage. But cruisers, you're not going to play very much undetected in a cruiser. You're pretty much always going to be detected in a cruiser when you're dealing damage. And so if you're either going to play, like, there's 2 ways you can carry. You're either going to be detected or you're not. And so if you're detected, no matter what, you're just going to want to have as much hit points and as much power as possible. And if you're not going to be detected, then you also want to have as much power as possible, which is going to be either an aircraft carrier or a destroyer. But that in between, like the cruiser, it's just much harder to carry a team. Now, if you're playing solo, and you definitely want to improve your win rate and not make any compromises, then I would just play only battleships or destroyers. I think that it's easier to carry a team in a destroyer than an aircraft carrier if you're playing solo. But the best ship to play solo, I think, would be a battleship. But I definitely wouldn't recommend playing solo at all if you want to improve your win rate. I'm getting to the end of my notes here for this topic, and then I'll let you ask me some different questions. Let's see. This has to go back to strategies. So my last note here for improving win rate is the strategies, and it's specifically for battleships, because battleships are ultimately the best ship you're going to want to use to carry teams. Battleships that stay behind the cap zone and they act like they're supervising the area without actually being in the area, they're not helping out, they're not defending their team. Their team is defending them. The thing is, if you're in a battleship, you need to be able to be the damage sponge, because that's what they are. They have so much hit points. You need to be good at mitigating damage, so making it harder for the enemy to hit you, but actually being effective. So you need to go into the cap zone at the beginning of the matches and help your team out. Like, say if there's a center cap zone, get in there and be the damage sponge. Allow your other teammates, like the more vulnerable ones, the cruisers, to get in there with you. If you let cruisers get in first, they're gonna get wrecked. They don't have that many hit points. Instead, you need to have enemies firing at you so that your cruisers can support you. So rather than, if you're in a battleship, rather than you supporting your cruisers, you want your cruisers to support you. Let the enemy fire at you, Try and mitigate damage and let those cruisers get in there and just start getting lots of rounds off, and hopefully get those destroyers taken out. Because the cruisers are gonna, those destroyers are gonna be in there in the cap zone in the beginning. So let your cruisers be in there without taking enemy fire, and let them fire at those destroyers while you're the distraction and you're the damage sponge. And so the thing is, battleships are the most effective when they're defending their team or helping their team, not just like supervising the area and letting everyone else take all the damage. So learn how to mitigate damage so that you can be that damage sponge and help them out the most. All right, what's the that's the end of my long notes right here for that first question. Fortitude, do you have, what's the next, or anyone have any questions for that one?
Yeah, boy. This is Fortitude today. I'm sorry that I'm breaking up just a little bit, but thank you so much for being a part of our call. Does your strategy change if you're playing skirmishes versus platoon?
Yes, absolutely. So for a skirmish, I suck at pronouncing that word because growing up I always thought it was skirmish, and then just a few months ago I read the word carefully and I was like, it's not spelled skirmish, it's spelled like skirmish or something like that, and I was like, my whole life I've been saying this word wrong. So anyways, yes, it does change substantially. It's completely different, a whole different game. When you're playing in a pre-made 7 vs 7, your team wants to stick together and be grouped up. The biggest thing is, the biggest advantage for that is for aircraft carriers. You have massive amount of anti-aircraft damage when you're all huddled together, and you can shoot down, basically that's shutting down the enemy carrier, because aircraft carriers, they can typically do the most damage the easiest in a match, or at least at high tier. Not so much at lower tiers, but at high tier they do. And so to shut them down, basically to shut down the biggest damage dealer on the enemy team, you want to be all huddled together so that you can get all that anti-aircraft damage. And what you're going to see if you watch any of the top fleets doing 7 vs 7s, they're always going to be together, targeting the same targets. And basically just really, really coordinated. Whereas if you're in a platoon or whatever of three guys going into a random matchmaking, you don't have to stay together, you can, but with that, if you have, you don't necessarily have to stay all huddled together like that, or at least I don't. Typically, when I play with other skilled players and it's 3 of us, we can all just kind of do our own thing, and I do like to stick together on the same side of the map as one of the others, but I don't need to be right next to them for that anti-aircraft damage like I would in a 7 vs 7. I mean, for 7 vs 7s, for skirmishes, you really have to be like really, really close to each other, but with 3s, it doesn't matter that much. As long as y'all are making the right, as long as you're on the same side of the map, making the right decisions at the right time, it's gonna work out. Like you can relax way more.
That makes a lot of sense. And again, thanks so much for being a part, and for all of our guests who are joining our Northern Armada Fireside Chat. YeahBuoy, can you talk a little bit about your press account? How did you get that, and what have you enjoyed about it most?
Sure. So for the press account, Wargaming had made a Facebook post, and I wasn't on Facebook at the time. I'm not on Facebook. I made an account just so that I could message Wargaming and that Facebook page, but it's just a YeahBuoy account, and I'm not actually active on there at all. Someone had told me that Wargaming made a post that they were looking for the community to make a video on either tactics or just a good match, and it'd be a high quality video, and so it seemed like a competition to me. They were looking for the best one, and so I decided, hey, I already make videos. I want to try and make the best one. And it just so happened that I had a match where I had sunk all 7 enemies, and I didn't know what the reward was going to be for this little video competition for the community. I didn't know I was going to get a press account out of it, but I knew that I wanted to win and get something, whatever they're going to do. whether they just announced like gave like a announcement reward, like just calling you out and saying this guy won, like this guy did the best video, or if they're actually going to give you like a ship or gold or silver or something. I didn't know. I just knew that I wanted to make the best one. So I took my match where I sunk 7 enemies, and I decided to just add some tips on like what you can do, or at least what I was doing to sink those 7 enemies. And so I just gave a short and sweet video, and I did it as best as I could, and they liked my video the most. So they rewarded me with a press account and said, basically with this press account, you'll have access to all of the ships. You can make videos on whatever you want, anything that you want, you can make a video on. They said don't join. They said don't use this account as a personal account. It's only meant for when you're recording gameplay. You don't have to use the footage. You can just record and hope that you get good footage. But just don't replace your personal account with this. We just want to make it as easy as possible for you to make videos on whatever you want. And so yeah, that's how I got the press account. They said they didn't want to give me any more rules like that. They wanted to give me as the least amount of rules as possible so that I could have as much creative freedom as possible. So just for an example, like I would not be able to use the press account just to play ranked matches, for example, for the goal of me becoming ranked. But if I was making a video specifically on how does whatever ship perform in a ranked match, and I didn't have that ship on my personal account, I could play a few ranked matches with that ship on the press account, but not for personal reasons, only for the goal of the video that I'm making. And if I wanted to play ranked matches for personal reasons, and it had nothing to do with like that video, and I had the ship on my personal account, I would need to play on my personal account. The press account is just basically they gave me 5 million gold. I think I started with like 250 million free XP and like I think 500 million silver or something like that. So what they do is they just give me all that extra stuff so that I can buy whatever ships to make whatever videos I want to make. And then whenever new ships come out, they send me new ships. A lot of times, especially like lately, like this year, they've been slacking on remembering to send me the latest ships. So like more than half the time when new ships come out, I have to open up a ticket and say, hey, please send me whatever ship. And then like the next day I'll get it in the mail. And a lot of times, most of the time, I end up playing the ship and I just decide not to make a video on it because I only choose to make videos on, I guess, the ships that are the most worthwhile for talking about or whatever, because I don't make any money off my videos. I just do them for fun, just for the community, to help people out. And so there's been ships that have released in the past that were just bad, and I played with them a bunch and I decided, no, I'm just not going to make a video on this. So yeah, I'm pretty free on what I can do with that account. What's up?
That's awesome. It's a benefit for all of us that you have the account. How do you choose and decide which videos to make for your YouTube account?
Sorry, say that again. How do I choose videos to make for my own account?
For the YouTube account, how do you decide which topics, or which ships to record or which videos to make? Yeah.
So sometimes I have so much footage. So there's two ways that I decide. Number one is if there's a ship that I just really love, I will actively go out and make footage for that ship, knowing that I'm not going to stop recording until I have the footage that I want to make whatever video I want that I've decided on ahead of time. And then the second way that I make videos is since I record everything, I save the best clips, and then I decide like what I can do with those ships, like whenever I think about it later on. So like I have a folder on my computer that's like, I title these folders according to salvos. So if one day I ever want to make a compilation of really good shots, then I can say, sorry, I don't title them according to salvos, I title them according to Citadel hits. So if I ever want to make a video of nothing but really good skilled shots, then I can go fetch footage of really good shots according to how many Citadel hits I got. So I have Citadels from, or folders from 1 to 4 Citadel hits. And then if I'm ever looking for, like, let's say if I ever wanted to make a video, if I ever felt inspired to make a video, I'm nothing but like double Citadels back to back, just tons of double Citadels. I have them already organized like that. I have other folders that are just good matches in general where I'm carrying a team. And when the day comes that I have the time to make those videos, I can sift through all these different really good matches, and then I can just pick one and say, yeah, I'd like to talk about this one. I also organize my videos according to ships. So if I ever want to make another Amagi video, I have all my Amagi videos together. The ones that I saved anyways. I sift through whenever I record, and I delete the ones that I know I'm never going to use, and I keep the ones that I am going to use. So yeah, basically whenever I feel inspired to make a video, or if I think of an idea, at least I'll be able to find the videos that I want quickly because they're already organized according to various types of categories. Whether it's an aircraft carrier or destroyer or dodging torpedoes, I have a big folder on dodging torpedoes with tons more footage I haven't used yet. Or if I have, if I want to make a video on like I'm just setting tons of fires, I have that. Tons of Citadels have that. Like right now, one of the videos that I want to make, hopefully soon, is this video where I defended my base from 3 destroyers solo. I was in, I think, in Nuremberg, and there were 3 destroyers in my base capping, and I went in solo and defended them, sunk all 3 of the destroyers, and I would love to put that on YouTube and give commentary to the match, just because it was an awesome match. I just haven't had the time to do that. So, like right now, what I'm working on is the Giulio Cesare ship, and it's not spelled the way that it's pronounced. The Italian Tier 5 battleship is pronounced the Giulio Cesare, and right now for that, for example, I chose to do a video on that just because when I played it, I was doing really well in it and I loved it. I was like, wow, this is a really good ship. Like, other people need to know about this, because when I view premiums, like I want to make sure that I make videos on premiums that are worth buying and the premiums that aren't. So far, if there's a premium that comes out and it's atrocious, I'm gonna make a review on it, and an honest review, and I'm gonna say this ship sucks. And it's not just gonna be a video like bashing the ship, but letting players know, like, my recommendation, like here's my real evaluation of the ship, just to kind of save players from wasting their money. I care about those things. But what I've done mostly so far is make videos on premiums that are definitely worth buying. If I'm just loving it and I think it's worth buying, I'm totally making a video on it. And the thing is, I don't make any money from Wargaming. I'm not affiliated with them at all. Like I barely, in fact, they don't even contact, they don't thank me for making my videos. They don't contact me at all. They just gave me the press account and just kind of disappeared. And the only kind of contact that I've had with them is whenever I message them and say, hey, I have a new video, like, check it out. And they're like, oh, cool, we like it. But yeah, they don't reach out to me at all, and I don't make any money.
We want to thank you. We want to say thank you for making your videos, because they're a great benefit to all of us. And
no problem.
We're down to about our final 15 minutes, and I want to make sure that we don't run out of time to have you tell us about, I know you're got a new venture coming up with t-shirts. Can you tell us a little bit about your t-shirt endeavor?
Sure, yes.
And then if there's anybody that's got questions, we can do that.
Yes. So for the t-shirts, I was wanting to, basically, I went back to university this last fall, like last year, and I was only focusing, this is right after I had this long cancer battle, and I was really fatigued. I knew I wouldn't be able to handle both school and work at the same time. I needed to ease back into life. So right now, I'm not making any money, and so I knew that, well, now that I'm in summer break after school, I need to be making some money. And so I decided, well, what's the best way to do that? Like, I would rather be able to make money from home and continuing to do what I do rather than going and getting like a 9-to-5 job, because that's ideal for everyone, I would imagine. And so I decided, well, I have this YouTube thing and I love making videos. I would love to be able to keep making videos but also make some money, and I don't like ads and stuff, so I didn't want to like try and monetize my channel and make a bunch of money off ads. There's a couple of ads on my videos where I don't have the royalty-free license to use certain musics. Like I'll have the copyright license to use the music, but not royalty-free. So sometimes the owners of the copyright will still insert ads, but I don't make any money off that. So I decided to make some t-shirts and be like t-shirts that everyone's actually gonna like, not just like crap t-shirts that people are gonna buy just to help me out, but t-shirts that people would buy even if it wasn't me selling them. And so right now I'm working with some designers, and not just t-shirts, but hoodies, hats, and other merchandise, coffee mugs and stuff. But the main thing is t-shirts that I want to sell, like really high quality t-shirts. And so what I'm doing is I spent a lot of time researching like the highest quality cotton that I could find. I ordered a bunch of different samples, and I've hired a whole bunch of different graphic designers because I want to have the highest quality design, the highest quality cotton, not just sell cheap shirts, but really good shirts that are gonna last, shirts that people are gonna love and wear for a really long time. So I'm getting close to being able to launch that. Right now, I did receive a final version of like my favorite design of the shirt on Friday, but then there's like this slight little modification that I needed to make, so I'll get that again on Monday, the new final design. And some of the other designs, I wanted to like launch the shirts with like a bunch of designs all at once, but it's just taking so long, and I need to make some money this summer that right now I think I'm just gonna launch one shirt at a time. First I'm gonna launch like my favorite design, which should be in a few weeks. I'll have the design done like on hopefully Monday. Then I'll have to travel to another city to the screen printers that are actually going to do the job, and I want to check out their facility, check out the work environment, and make sure that it's not some like crap work environment and I'm paying people that are like suffering in their job, you know. I want to make sure they have a nice work environment, healthy and everything, and that the quality of their prints are really good before I hire them. And what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do a pre-sale, and I'll like set up like I'll start selling the shirts for like a 2-week period or a month or something, and then however many sales I get, that's how many I'm gonna produce. So I'm gonna take that money from the sales and then go have them make the shirts. But I am gonna make sure, I'm gonna look at that company's final products ahead of time so that I know that when I give them the money, they're actually gonna make the quality shirt that I want. I care about quality. So that's where I'm at right now with the t-shirts. I'm not ready to do like an official announcement yet or anything like that, but that's where I'm at.
That's exciting, and we'll look forward to hearing about what all the merchandise is and how we can order it. In our just last 10 minutes or so here, do you have on your personal account when you're playing, do you have a favorite country that you like to play, a line of ships, or what are your favorite ships to play when you're just messing around for fun?
Well, I would say that my favorite country is in real life, my favorite country is the United States, but in the game, as far as gameplay goes, it's Japan, because I guess they have, I don't know, I guess it's the way that I wasn't prepared to answer that specifically, but I guess it's the way that the rounds fire and the way they go across the ocean, like the arc on the rounds I like the most. It's easier for me to land rounds in a Japanese ship than an American ship, because the Americans have like a higher arc and they go up and drop. It's easier for me to get rounds to go like closer to the water and just like cross and hit the side of the ship than be so precise. I feel like you have to be more precise with the American ships to get them to drop directly onto the deck than just kind of like go across the water and hit more from a side angle. But as far as my favorite ships, it depends on the tier. Like at tier 3, my go-to would be the Wix, the tier 3 American destroyer. If I was doing a tier 3 premium, it'd be either the Campbelltown or the Dreadnought. Those are both, I think they're both British. Campbelltown's a tier 3 destroyer, premium destroyer. Dreadnought's a premium battleship. For tier 4, my go-to is the Clemson. The Yabari is a good Japanese premium tier 4 cruiser, but it's easier to get wrecked in that than a Clemson, so really my go-to is the Clemson. For tier 5, my go-to is the Congo, the Nicholas, the Königsberg. Congo is a battleship, Nicholas is a destroyer, Königsberg is a cruiser. For tier 5 premium ships, my go-tos are the Agincourt and the Giulio Cesare. For tier 6, my go-tos are the Fuso, it's a battleship, the Bayern's a battleship, and the Nürnberg, a cruiser. But I will typically go for, if there's like a rare circumstance where I'm playing solo, I'd rather play a Fuso than a Bayern or a Nürnberg. But typically for tier 6, I use a premium Warspite. It's a British battleship. I don't have the Dunkirk, but that's another premium that's good for tier 6. For tier 7, my go-to is the Mayoko. If I'm playing free-to-play for the premiums, it's either the West Virginia battleship or the Graf Zeppelin aircraft carrier. I don't have the tier 7 Nelson. That's a, I think, British battleship at tier 7. That's also really good. I would prefer the Nelson over the West Virginia. You can set so many fires in the Nelson. I just don't have that on my personal account. For tier 8, my go-tos are the Shikaku, the Amagi. Actually, those two are my go-tos. My number one is the premium Alabama, but if I'm playing free-to-play, Shikaku or Amagi. Some other notable ships are the North Carolina, the Wichita, the Z-23, and the Takao. Those are also really good tier 8 ships that I have that I love playing. But I guess the North Carolina, if I need more anti-aircraft damage, I'll play that. And if I just want a ship that's just easier to play, the Amagi. North Carolina, I think that's better competitively, but I do think it takes slightly more skill to land your rounds in North Carolina than an Amagi, or at least for me. The Z-23 is my favorite tier 8 destroyer because it's easier to take out other destroyers in a Z-23 because it's a German gunship destroyer, and I love having like the more powerful rounds on my destroyer, as well as like the shorter torpedo reload time and the longer range on the torpedoes, because that's really what I was like missing when on high tier American destroyers. I was always like wishing that they had a longer range, a shorter torpedo reload time, and that's essentially what we got with the German destroyers. For tier 10, my go-tos are Yamato and Shimakaze.
Now, I noticed that you didn't mention any carriers in that play. Are you a carrier player at all?
Yes, actually, so for tier 7, I love the Graf Zeppelin, and for tier 8, I love the Shikaku. I love playing carriers, and I do play carriers at tier 10. I have both the Midway and the Hikuryu, but they aren't like my go-tos. And so there's a lot of ships that I love to play, but I didn't mention them here because they're not like my go-to ships. I just mentioned like my absolute favorites to go to. So like my favorite ships aren't like exclusive to the ones I just mentioned.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. Well, just in our final 5 minutes here, are there any other any of our listeners who would like to ask questions? We just would invite you to identify your name and your fleet if you have a question for YeahBuoy.
Yes, I was thinking, what do you think about the strategy, know your enemy, and then you'll be able to exploit their weaknesses and stuff?
Perfect, right on. Yeah, I've said that in some of my videos in the past. I completely agree with that. I don't know where I heard that, but I definitely repeat that. I've repeated that in the past just because I agreed with that and it helped me. There's been times when there's destroyers that fire their torpedoes and I didn't know what their torpedo reload time was or how many they had, so I didn't know if I could be that very aggressive with them or not. So that's when I started studying other enemy ships, like enemy destroyers, and looking up their stats, looking up what their reload time and how many torpedoes they have, so that I know, okay, if I see this many torpedoes come from them, that means they're out of torpedoes. I can be as close as I want for this amount of time before they're reloaded again. It's really good to know those kind of things, or to know like if there's a bunch of enemy battleships on the enemy team, which ones are the most vulnerable, which ones have the least amount of armor, or which ones set on fire the easiest, stuff like that, so that you can target the right enemies and kind of counter their strategies. Any other questions?
Yeah, boy. Again, we're so grateful that you would come and give your afternoon time and for all of, I know, the hours that you invest in the videos to helping players improve their skill and fun in the game. Sometimes we worry about players who maybe play too much or experience burnout. Any strategies for keeping the game fun and avoiding burnout?
Yes. So that's happened to me in the past. There's been a few times when I felt burnt out, and the thing is, what you want to do, I guess the first thing to do is figure out why you're getting burnt out. For me, if I start losing a lot, then I just don't even. I'm not as motivated to play. There's two things that motivate me to play. Number one is like winning, sinking a lot of ships, and then number two is just how fun it is. Like I guess playing different types of ships, because that changes your experience in the game completely. So if you're getting tired of playing, trying to figure out what it is, because it might just be that you're tired of playing that type of ship. So play a bunch of different ships, like play an aircraft carrier, play the destroyers, cruisers, battleships, play them all, and play them at different tiers. What you may find also is that, I guess, the number one thing I'd say, if you are up to tier 10 and you're starting to feel burnt out, stop playing tier 10, because tier 10 is the easiest way to get burnt out. Like the best tier in the game is probably tier 8, and after that is either probably tier 6, maybe 7. Tier 9 sucks. I don't recommend anyone playing tier 9 ever, unless you can't skip the ship. Tier 9 is probably easier to get burnt out in the game playing tier 9 than it is tier 10. And tier 10 is like kind of really easy just because it's so much harder to carry teams, and there's so many players that are unskilled and just skipped up to tier 10 that you'll get a lot less, like your teams aren't going to be as smart or as coordinated in tier 10 as they are in tier 8. Like there's much more skilled players at tier 8 than 10. So one other thing that you might want to try is playing lower tiers, like play tier 3 and 4 again if you're starting to get burnt out, because you'll realize, like, wow, this is really fun. Like I'm sinking so many more ships at tier 3 and 4 because there's like less skilled players down here, so you can go in and dominate, just have some fun. But do know that is gonna like lower your average damage playing tier 3 and 4 rather than the higher tiers, but you'll probably have some more fun because you're gonna be, your skill is gonna be a lot better than all the other new players. Oh, and one more thing, I do recommend like taking breaks. Like whenever I'm feeling burnt out, I don't force myself to play. I do like play other games just to give myself a little break, and then I come back. But just make sure that you do come back, like just to remind yourself of how fun it is to play this game.
I got a question for you.
What's up?
Does Wargaming actually watch your videos?
They do, simply because some of the ones that I believe that at least one of the ones that they recommended on their YouTube channel, they're like, our favorite video of the month is this from YeahBuoy. I don't remember which one it was, but I think there's one of them that I didn't send them or like notify them that they might like this video, so they just happened to like watch it on their own, or somebody sent it to them, but I didn't, and they recommended it. Could you please do us all a favor and suggest in your next video how desperately we need new maps? New maps, alrighty. I will. Yeah, and there's one more thing. I guess I don't remember which video it was, but there was one video where I don't know, it was the tier 7, the Algeria. Yeah, the Algeria. I called them out on this bug that had been around for over a year, and then in the next update they fixed it, and so I don't think that was a coincidence, and so the only way they would have, if it wasn't a coincidence, it was because they watched the video and heard my feedback and made a change.
We're right at 1 hour, and so YeahBuoy, I want to thank you for your time in coming and being a part of our fireside chat with the West Northern Armada. And we will be posting this video to YouTube along with our other fireside chats. And so thanks again, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks. Appreciate you inviting me. I enjoyed it. Y'all have a good day.